For whatever reason, it doesn't allow me to show the video now. Conflicts somehow with Snagit. Probably by Wednesday I'll be back at my normal station, so I can put the camera back on. But I have to see it. They're running new wires and so forth into the classroom. Okay, I'm gonna do a file. I'll go ahead and apologize, as you'll hear me hacking and kind of clear my throat. I've taken medicine, but only helps with a little bit. Okay, I got Windows Desktop under Visual C# and the Windows format. I'll leave that as is. And click OK.
So what exactly are we going to be doing today?
We're going to review a little bit and work our way up to more on list boxes and combo boxes. So we have a text box here. Maybe. There it goes. And a button. Okay, so for our text box here, I'm going to change the font of it. Make it a little bit bigger. Same here. Change the font of the button. And this is going to just review a little bit. So I have a text say add. And when we click this, we're going to add the numbers from 1 to 10. Now remember, to declare a integer, we're going to declare with the int. Integer is the number with no decimals. And I'll have it equal to sum. And then we're going to have a so we're going to add all the numbers from 1 to 10. So you got sum is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Assuming I can type it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We want to write back out to the form. This is text box 1. I'm going to give it a different name. TB underscore sum. Now I'm going to right click on this and I'll say copy, and then I'll right click over here and say paste. And same here. Now look at this one. It's called text box 1. I'm going to call TB underscore sum 2. And call this one TB underscore sum 3. And I guess I ought to drop a label on there of some sort. Change its font to 14. And change its text to read sum. Okay. Now we're adding these together. So I'm going to say my TB underscore sum dot text. Now remember, text is a string, and then I'll say sum to string. Sum is an integer, and so we can't put an integer in a string, so we have to convert the integer to a string and then assign it. Okay, so if I run this, click the add, tells me my answer is 55. Well, obviously that isn't very practical, because if we were adding up all the numbers from 1 to 1,000, then we wouldn't be doing that. So this is method 1, straight addition. Method 2 is to use a for loop. So I'm going to reuse sum. I'll say sum is equal to 0. And for int, x equals 1, continue while x is less than or equal to 10. And then I'll do x is equal to x plus 1. Then I'll say sum is equal to sum plus x. And I'm going to write that out to tb underscore sum 2. Okay, now sum is equal to 0. This tells us our beginning value. So we're starting at x equals 1. Now it tells us it's an integer. Now this next piece is how long do we continue? We continue while x is less than or equal to 10. If it becomes greater than 10, we stop. And here we increment x by 1 each time. So we got x is equal to x plus 1. So let's run that. And I see I get 55 and 55. Now this x equals x plus 1 here, you could write that as x plus plus. And that's a real common way to write it. That means the same thing as x equals x plus 1. But you don't have to go by ones. You can do x equals x plus 2. That's perfectly fine. So it'll go by 2's. Now what happens is the first time x is equal to 1, it goes through this loop because x is still less than or equal to 10. So it goes through this loop, comes back up here. This tells it what to increment it by. Well, 1 plus 2 is 3, so now x is 3, which is still less than or equal to 10, so we'll go ahead and do it. So we'll go through this. Come back up here. It increments it by 2 again, so 3 plus 2 is 5. And comes down here and does this once again. Now we got method 3, which is a while loop. And I'll set sum equal to 0 again, because I'm going to be working with that. Now I need to declare a variable here like x. And I'll say x is equal to 1. Now I'm going to say while x is less than or equal to 10. Now I'll put a beginning curly brace, closing curly brace. Then I'm going to say sum is equal to sum plus x. And x is equal to x plus 1. And then we write out the result. No, I didn't like that. Local can be declared in scope because that name is used in enclosing to define a name or parameter. Because I declared it down here. Let me call this x2. There we go. So now if I run that, $25. That's not good. I think I changed anything up there. Oh, I did. Okay, put that back to what it was. And then start this. 55, 55, 55. Okay. Let me change this. X equals 1, continue while x is less than 10, and increase x by 1. So if I run this, I see it's not right. Comes up with 45. Now over here in this gray area, if you click there, it puts a red circle. This is something called a breakpoint. So if you're trying to debug and see what's going on with your code, and I'm going to show this in pretty much all the classes except for maybe a C class. But if you click over here, puts a breakpoint, and most IDEs have this. It allows you to debug, see what's going on. Why isn't it working? Now up here, you see there's a debug, and there's a start debugging, and start without debugging. Now we've been doing the start debugging, which haven't done anything because we haven't had any breakpoints. Start without debugging, we would ignore those red circles. So I'm going to click Start Debugging. Comes up here, I click my add. It does all the lines of code until this one, and then it kicks out. And you see a little arrow over here. Now if I put my mouse over the sum, it tells me sum is equal to 55. It hasn't run this line of code yet. Now up here, you see there's a debug, and step into F11. Now if I do F11, it went ahead and ran this line of code. And if I put my mouse over sum, it tells me the current value of sum. Sum is equal to 0. Even more than that, you have your value of your variables down here. So you can see sum is equal to 0. You see it's an integer. I don't think anything's under this that we'd want. No. And it says x is 0. Okay. So let's run this line of code here. So again, I'll do F11. If my F11 wasn't messed up with the shift function, all this and that, then I'd do it. But I'll go ahead and just do this. Maybe I can do it. And okay. Now when it went ahead and did let's see. You see x is equal to 1. I really expected that to be on the next line. That is strange. But anyway, you can put your mouse over these and it tells you the value. Let me see. F11. Okay. There, did that line of code there. Now it's done this, so x is still equal to 1. If I put my mouse over sum, it says 0. So that's what it should be at that point. I put my mouse over the x, it's a 1. If I do F11 again, okay, I see the debug goes these pieces. So it's coming here, and once it does this, it should increase the value of x. So I do F11. You see x is now equal to 2 down here. Now it's going to do this check to see if x is less than 10. So I do F11 again. X is still less than 11, so it comes down here. Now I could continue this over and over and see the reason why it's not working. Probably I should have chosen a smaller number than 10 to demonstrate the debugging. But if I come down here and just click in the gray, I can put another red circle, another breakpoint. And now if you click continue, it will continue to the next breakpoint. So it'll skip all these iterations in here. That's especially useful if you got x is less than 1,000. You don't want to sit there and do F11 a couple thousand times. So now if I do a continue, it comes down here. and I can put my mouse over sum. I see sum is 45, and strange. Notice what it sets x equal to 156. I would expect it x to be 10 or 11, probably 10. I would not have expected it to be 156. Now, I'm sure it wasn't at this point because my sum is 45. But it could be when it went out of the for loop, it looks like it got confused on what the value of x is equal to. Interesting. You remember your problem yesterday where it looked good? We're going to look at the same thing tomorrow on how to do this in Unity, which uses Visual Studio. So it has very similar debugging and to help us figure out weird issues like that.
Okay.
Now that won't cause us a problem because we're not using x anywhere down here, but that is just bizarre. Okay, so now if I just kept on going, if I kept doing F11s, you'll notice that x2 is here. Yeah, this is really strange stuff. I would have expected sum equals 0 would automatically put a sum down here, but I didn't see it there. Okay, so then you can sit there and you can watch this as it's going through, and you can see what the values are. Okay, so it doesn't automatically put all the variables there. It just looks like what we're working with currently. Okay, locals, I guess, is where all the variables are there. Well, I don't see x there. But I mean, really, I don't use this very much. I put my mouse over them so I can see what's going on. But if you like that, you can just watch it down there. Okay. Okay, so now x2 is 10. It's going to come back up here. Put my mouse over x2, says it's 10. 10 is less than or equal to 10, so I should do it one more time. Now at this point, x2 is 11. So it'll come up. Comes up here, x2 is 11. 11 is not less than or equal to 10, which means it's not true, so I shouldn't do this bit of code here anymore. This only continues while this is true. So if I do F11 now, you see how it pops down here. Does that make sense on the debugging?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Very useful feature. I would have showed it to you last night, but I wasn't feeling very good. Plus, I didn't remember how to do the debugging in Unity, so I have to refresh my memory before I show it tomorrow. I know when you do a debug in Unity, you have to, I think, attach Unity Debugger, and you have to attach it to your process, I think. But it's still very similar. Okay, now strange. It'd be Cykran, I think. Did I click the red dots? don't remember clicking them.
You may have.
I mean, yeah, I bet I did it without even thinking. When you're done debugging, you don't want it to keep popping out every time it hits one of these breakpoints, so these red dots. So to undo it, you just click it, and that undoes it. If you have a bunch of them, up there somewhere is a debug, clear all breakpoints, delete all breakpoints, and now get rid of all of them. Usually I don't have so many I need to do that. I just always just click them like that. Does that make sense on the three methods for adding the numbers?
Yeah, I'll have to look at them, but yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. We're going to build upon this. The same kind of concept is how we can use to work with something called arrays. Okay, so I'm going to delete this code. And we're looking at arrays here. Arrays are lists of numbers or list of items. We saw that already with the list box, where we had a list of strings, but they can be any data type. Now, this is how you initialize an array. You have your variable type first with brackets around it, then your name, and then equals, new double, and then the size. So that's how we're going to declare it. So I got int sum. Now you can break this apart. You can put a semicolon there, and that right there is the declaring part. And then having it set equal to the new, if I can get that done, highlight. Setting it to equal to new is how we assign the size for it. But typically people put all in one. Equals new int 10. Well, try to make that bigger, but let me just change the font size. Okay, so we got numbers 1 through 10 here. Excel has a nice feature. We can click the auto sum here. And it's got A1 to A11. Those refer to your cells. And I can go just to A10 because that's where my number ends. And that adds up my numbers. Well, how does it do that? Well, from a programming standpoint, we want to loop through from this number to this number. And with programming, you see how this is row 1 up to row 10? It never is that way. Here your index is 0, index is equal to 1, all the way up to your index is equal to 9. And we'll see what in the world I mean by that. But it always starts at 0 for the numbering. This is not, for example, the 0th or the first entry. It's the 0th entry. This is not the 10th entry. This is the 9th entry. So, if I want to assign a value to the Zeroth entry, I say sum of 0 is equal to 1. Sum of 1 is equal to 2. Sum of this and so on. And that's disappointing. I expected a little red squiggly here. I was going to demonstrate something, but we don't. When we're going and our size is 10, it goes from 0 to 9. It goes one less. This should give us an error. Let's see if it gives us an error when we run it. If I click add, comes down here. It says index out of range exception. Index was outside the bounds of the array. This is kind of a standard error message you get, and it's whenever you go beyond what you got the array defined as. I want to show this because this is a real common error for whatever reason, to access it outside of it. Okay, so I click the red square there to stop it. Again, you cannot go up to 10. Now this is basically assigning these values right here to index 0 through index 9. The index is what's inside the brackets here. Now I could add these together, and I want to come up with sum of numbers like that. I could say sum of numbers is equal to this plus this plus this plus this plus this and so forth. But that would be kind of clunky. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to loop through this. Now notice how this goes from 0 to 9, doesn't it? Arrays work out perfect to use the for loop when traversing through them. So I'll say for int x equals, I'll start off with 0 because that's what I got here, starting at 0. I'm going to continue while x is less than or equal to, what would I put there? We want to go from 0 to 9. So I put a 9 there. And these are increasing by 1. See how it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3? So I could just put an x plus plus there to increase it by 1. So then I say sum of numbers is equal to sum of numbers plus sum x. Now a couple things to note here. First off, it's got a little red squiggly under that. We like red squigglies. That tells us we did something wrong and we can correct it. It says use of unassigned local variable. Unassigned, well, we declared it here, but we did not assign it a value. So I can, up here where I declare it, I can say it's equal to 0. Now the other thing is that x is going to change each time through this loop. So first x is going to equal 0. So if I put 0 in here, that's sum 0, which is right here. If x increases to 1, then I got sum 1, which is right here, all the way up to 9, which would give me the sum 9 here. Now you can use while, the while loop also, to go through an array, but the for loop works out pretty well. So then I need to write it out to my blank, what I call it, tb. Sum.text equals to sum of numbers dot toString. Like that. That should give us 55 again. Which it does. Is that I know that's a lot. We're throwing a lot out here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes quite a bit of sense, actually.
Okay. Hardest part is getting used to it starting at 0 and going to 1 less than your size. Now you don't have to actually even hard code this. The 9. You can refer to the length of sum. See if I can remember the format of it though. Sum dot length gets the total number of elements, all the dimensions of the array. Now that's going to return 10, unfortunately. So less than or equal to 10, that's not what I want, because I want it to go from 0 to 9. But if I should get rid of the equals, continue while x is less than 10. Well, that would be 0 through 9, in theory. But let's try it and see. And it gives us 55 again. You'll eventually get used to working with these, and they help with your programming, because then if we change the size of it, you oftentimes only have to change it in one place. Okay, so let's see how in the world this applies to our list box. I'm gonna take all those, move them down here, and I'm gonna drop on a list box. I'll make it 14 for my font, so you can see it a little bit easier. Now I'm going to have a text box over here. Change its size to 14. And then I'm going to have an add button. Change it to 14. And have it say add. Okay, now our goal here is we want to develop this app such that when they put a number in here and they click the add button, it'll add the number right here. Then later on, we're going to change the add button here such that when we click the add button here, it'll add whatever numbers are in this box. So that's our goal. Now I'm going to rename this, give it a meaningful name, TB underscore new num. That's a new number we're going to add. If I want to give this a meaningful name, I call this LBox numbers. Okay, so put a number in here, click the add button, it'll add it to my list. So we double click add. And I need to retrieve that number we just came up with. So I could put it as a integer if I wanted the integer. I could just retrieve it as a string, and we're going to see why. I'll call it snum for string, and snum is going to equal to tb underscore new number dot text. So I'm not at this point in time. I'm not converting it to a number. I don't need to. And since I clicked the button, I then want to add it to my list box. So lbox numbers dot, let's see if I can remember this, items dot add in snum. So the add, the dot items dot add, and then whatever you put here should add that into my list. Well, let's see if it works. 2, 3, 8, 11. So I've just added 4 numbers. By the way, it doesn't put them in order or anything, although there is a way I could do that. So I put 2 and it puts 2 down here. It puts them in the order that I added them. Now I got 5 numbers. This first number here, this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. So if I was going to loop through here, it's from 0 to 4. So anytime you got a list anywhere in programming, it's always based upon an index of starting at 0. Okay, so now we want to change this right down here. So we're going to click that. It adds these numbers together. Okay, just add. This doesn't make much sense. Let's say sum the numbers. Okay, so when I click sum the numbers, it'll add these together. So I'm gonna or not double click that. Double click sum the numbers. Now I could, if I wanted to, reuse some of this, but I'm not going to. Although I could use the for loop. Yeah, let's try this again. I lie, I'll reuse some of it. So I got int sum of numbers equals 0. So that's our adding the numbers together. Now here I want to loop for int x equals 0, and that's fine because that's my first number in my list box. I want to continue while x is less than, and this is not right because now I need to refer to the length of the list box. And I had to play with these because I won't get it right the first time, so I'll go ahead and tell you that. Length items dot length. Item, or no, it's LBox 1. Or LBox numbers dot it's not there dot items dot
items dot count. Would that work?
Count. That's the other word. Yep, that's it. Good eye. Okay, now count is how many are in there. And so the less than is okay. Because if I got 5 numbers in there, I want it to go from 0 to 4. So you, and again, you can use your debugging if it's not getting all the numbers. Use your debugging to help figure out what it's doing. Okay, now this I always have to play with a little bit too. LBox number dot, I think it's items bracket like that, but we'll see. Gets the items of the list box. Can I apply to the integer? Oh, because this is a string at this point, or it's not a string. Now it's a string. Okay, which is still an issue because we want it to be an integer. Let me do this in 2 separate pieces so I can really demonstrate what's happening. Okay, so first retrieve the item from the list box. And so I'll have a string up here, string snum. So snum is equal to LBox numbers dot items X. Now, the reason why this doesn't work right here is items is the object, which contains everything. It contains the value, the string, it contains all the properties, contains everything. That's why the toString here is what you use. And then that converts just the value. So then we want to convert the string to an integer. So I need another variable up here like num. And just to make sure it's equal to a value initially, not that it matters, but sometimes it squawks if it isn't. Especially if it's inside of a loop of some sort. Num is equal to integer. And I'll choose 32 dot, no memory. It's either parse or try parse. I think parse. snum. So I'll convert the string to an integer. And then we'll add it to sum of numbers. So sum of numbers is equal to sum of numbers plus num. So again, retrieve the value from the list box. It's a string. Convert the string to an integer, and then add it to the sum of numbers. And then we're gonna, after we're done with this for loop, we're gonna write it out to the blank, the text box. Okay, so I got 3, 2, 5. That should add up to 10. So I'll click sum numbers, it gives us 10. Now I can keep on increasing values here. I can put 1 there. Click sum of numbers, gives me 11. 22, that should give me 33. So it's changed dynamically like that. Now, if I click start here, I don't have any numbers. If I click sum of the numbers, see how it gives me 0? I expected it actually to break, but my code must be such that it handled that automatically. If I put like Bob in here, allows me to put Bob there, but then if I click sum numbers, I know this will break. When it tries to convert it to an integer, then it'll give me an exception. It'll say format exception, input string was not in the correct format, and so forth. Don't worry about that too much for now. We're going to focus on the debugging part, but later on in the course, we're going to take a look at how to put error checking in there. How do you handle exceptions when something breaks, and so forth. Does that make sense how to add numbers in the list box? Okay. Now I'm going to change this a little bit. I want to have 2 more buttons. When you have an application like this, the add is fantastic. And oftentimes you put an arrow there to indicate the direction. So if I come down here to text, I put a arrow there, and that indicates that a number is being added in there instead of like summing. Now we can have a remove. So let me put a new button on there. Change the font size. 14. And change the text. To remove. Now, the idea when this, and again, I'll have to play with this a little bit. I mean, it's always the same, but I forget it semester after semester, is that whatever's highlighted, if you click the remove, it'll remove it from the list. Okay, so I'm going to double click remove. First, I need to figure out what's highlighted. So I'm going to declare an integer and call it position. And position is going to equal to list box numbers dot item. What's this one say? Gets or sets a currently selected item in the list box. Selected item. Returns a string represents current object. That's not what I want. There it is. Selected index. Gets or sets a 0 base to the selected item. So if I do selected index, that should return the one that's selected. Now, if I do lbox numbers dot, I think it's remove at, no, items dot remove at, removes a specified object from the collection. Remove at, removes the item at specified index from the collection. Okay. I think those are all that I need. Let's run that and see. That's gone. 3, 2, 4. So if I click 2 and click that, it gets rid of it. And that's how you can get rid of those. Part of programming isn't sit there and memorize everything under the sun. I mean, it's fantastic if you can, but to know that that's a feature. It does not matter what package you go to. I've looked at a lot of software packages that have list boxes on them. They all work the same way. You have some kind of capability to add to it. You have some kind of capability to remove to it. And usually you have some kind of capability to clear the entire list. So let's take a look at that. And change the font size to 14. And I'll change the text to clear. Okay, so I'm going to double click the clear. And I'll say lbox. Usually it's just clear. Dot items dot clear. Remove all items from the collection. Okay. Now that alone should clear the entire list. Okay, 2, add 5, 7, press clear, clears out my entire list. Then I can start over. Now each time I clear add, it should clear the number that's here and put maybe my cursor there. So that'd be a feature I could add. So let me come over here. When I click the add, I want it to clear this button right here, or this text box, which is tb_new_num. So I'll double click that. Come down here, and I'll say tb_new_num.text. I don't know if it's there as a dot clear. Maybe tb_num clear. Yeah, there is. That's not usually how I do it, but clear it occurs in many different controls. Then I want TB underscore new num dot see either focus or set focus. Focus sets input focus to the control. Okay, I think that does it right there. That focus there should put my cursor in that blank. They change things with different versions, so you have to kind of keep learning. See how it's automatically putting that there? And again, I can do my sum the numbers like that. Questions on any of that so far? And don't forget to unmute yourself if you do have questions with your spacebar.
Again, I'll have to play with it, but I don't have any questions yet.
Okay. Now, when I did this, you didn't see me do anything with arrays, did you? It's like, well, he showed arrays, but he didn't do anything with it. The arrays is built in to the control. So even though it didn't look like I did anything with arrays, I actually was working with arrays. That's part of this component right here. Now there's another one that deals directly with arrays, that concept. Combo box somewhere. There it is. So if I got my combo box here, sometimes I struggle with getting these to work right. I'm going to change the font of it to 14. Okay, and this is a list box numbers. This will be a combo box, so maybe C box is what name I'll give it. C box numbers. Now I'm going to click add here, and that adds a number here, but we're going to also try to add a number here. Okay, so where's my add? By the way, it's worthwhile to actually change it to your button name just so you know what your code's doing. So I got here, I wasn't sure what in the world's the add. Okay, so cbox or cbox numbers dot items dot add snum. Now if I run that, put 3 in here, add. If I do this drop down, you see how we have a 3 here. If I put a 4 here, click add. If I do my drop down, see I have 3 and 4. So it works the same way. Now it's a little bit harder to remove. It doesn't have the same quite the same functionality. The clear works out the same. Let's see if I can figure out to remove. It's been a while since I used that. If I come to remove, remove number from list box. Remove number from combo box. Okay, now if I click something here, it's highlighted. If I click something here, like 4, I don't know if it's still highlighted. I don't think it is. If I do the drop, well, maybe it is. Let's try that. Okay. So we'll do a CBox numbers dot items dot, or I need to get the position first, don't I? Position is equal to CBox numbers dot selected index. Well, what do you know? Then I'll say CBox numbers dot items dot remove at position. Of course, key will be if it works. So let's go try it. Three, 4, 5. Okay, so choose 5 here. And I'll choose 5 here. Okay, it's still selected. Remove. That did work perfect. Now clear, I'm pretty sure is just a clear. So if I come down here, CBox numbers dot items dot clear. Some of these have parentheses, some of them don't. Selected index up here did not have a parentheses. This refers to a property, an attribute, a characteristic. So it's something that describes it. This is actually a method. So I'm calling this, and it's performing some kind of function. Okay. Got my numbers there. Let me press my clear. And both gone from both of them. Difference between these. You may say, well, what's the difference? Because I can even do the sum of the numbers here. If I came down to sum of the numbers, I could have it loop through, and like, let me show you. I'll have num is equal to 0.
How many seats do you have available
Tonight? None tonight. It's Tuesday.
I mean, Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's currently I have 2 sheets, so 20 total.
Okay, I've got you 3 more.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, so we're at 5. So I can answer questions when they call me.
Okay. Okay, so I set num equal to 0. Let me think what I'm doing here. Okay, sum of numbers is okay. So sum of numbers is equal to 0. So now I have my for loop. Int x equals 0. X is less than CBox numbers dot items dot count. And I think it was x plus plus. Beginning curly brace, closing curly brace. Even though this looks different, I know it looks the same as that, but even though this looks slightly different, we're just working with arrays, so keep that in mind. We're going to have to eventually take something that's in a list box and put it in an array so we can do more with it than just add it together. So first retrieve the numbers from this combo box. The items from the combo box. So snum is equal to CBox or numbers dot items x dot toString. Then convert the string to an integer. So num is going to equal to int32.parse snum. and then add it to sum of numbers. So sum of numbers is equal to sum of numbers plus num. And then we're ready to write it out. I'll write it out to my second. TB sum2 dot text equals sum of numbers dot toString. So basically the same code, just change the name here. 3, 5, 2 should add up to 10. Same number there. And they do. They add up to 10. Now there's error checking you can put into this. Like if I click remove at this point, it'll break. It says value of -1 is not valid for the index. -1 means you did not find your number. In this case, we didn't have anything selected. Well, that's easy to check if you want to put that in there. I need to find my remove, so I'll come over here, double click remove. Before you do any of this code, you'd have to check to see if something's selected. So you say, down here you say if lbox numbers dot selected index is greater than -1. -1 means nothing selected. Now I'll do my curly brace there, and down here I'll put my closing curly brace. Same thing here. I want an if statement, cbox numbers dot selected index is greater than -1. This is always how you check to see if something's selected. You just check to see if it's greater than -1. Again, -1 means nothing was selected. So if I come over here, put some numbers in. See, I got that. Click remove. I can click remove all day long. Nothing selected, so it won't do anything. It's only until I have something selected will it remove it. Now notice, you did not remove it from this one because I didn't have anything selected over here. So if I select 3 here, click remove, you see it deletes that. Excuse me. Questions on any of that?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. Yeah, once you get used to the indexing, that's where a lot of it throws people at first. -1 means there's nothing in the list. You have to loop from 0 to 1 less, just like we did with the arrays. And that handles it right there. Now let's talk a little bit more about list boxes. Powerful tool. If I go down, you see there's a property that says sorted, and it says false. If I double click that, I can change that to true, which means these numbers will be sorted. So if I put some numbers in here, 5, 2, 1, 3, that'll sort those. Well, it's got a little bit of problem with that. If I put in 30, that's what it did. It's because it's thinking this is a string. And so by it being a string, that's the way it sorts them.
So it tries to sort them alphabetically, even though they're numbers.
Exactly. Now, I don't know if I changed the code because I added them as strings. And the thing about list boxes, it gives you total control. You can add them in whatever format you need. Like if I click the add here, remember how I did this as a string and then I added it to the list box? I could convert them to a number and add the number. So let's see if this does any difference. I don't think it will, but snum dot wait a minute, no, int 32 dot parse snum. So I'll convert it to an integer, and then I'm going to add the integer to the list box and combo box. So in theory now everything should be an integer. I think it still treats it as a string, but we'll see. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, 5, and 33. Yeah, treat it as a string. I wonder if there's any kind of option for that, like treat it as a number, or treat it as a. Didn't used to be, but each version of Visual Studio changes. Huh. I don't see it. Now, there are other ways around that. Like if you know that your largest number is going to be 2 digits long, then when you go to add these, you can make sure they're 2 digits long. Let me show that just for something different. I can check while length while snum.length is less than or equal to 1. Then I'm going to say snum is equal to snum is going to equal to 0 plus snum. Let's see what that does. And then I'll explain the code. If it works. 2, 3, 4, 5, 33. See how I put it in the proper order now? What my code does is it comes down here and gets the number from the text box and checks the length of it. If the length is 0 or 1, then it'll concatenate on a 0 on the front. It means put a 0 on the front. This addition you see here is not addition, it's concatenation. So it'll take your string and it'll put a 0 in front of whatever it is. In theory, if I leave it blank, let's see, 0, 0. Because the length of it is less than or equal to 1, and so it does that. Maybe that's not what we want though, but that's how you can control that. So you can see the list boxes and combo boxes are a little bit tricky to work with sometimes to get what you want, but they're powerful. The reason why is you can sort them. One program I wrote at IFR, I created a list box and I made it invisible. And I created it just so I could easily sort numbers. Because I didn't want to write a program to sort. And at that point in time, there was no sort algorithm in this. And so I did that. Now it's changed. Like if I look at an array of numbers now, Like if I have nums equals to int 10, 3. And I got some kind of syntax wrong there. New. Nums 0 equals 55. Nums 1 is equal to 30. Nums 2 is equal to 10. There's a nums dot. Oh, yeah, I thought there was a sort. Here I lied to you. Order by. Sorts the elements in ascending order according to a key. Except for I don't have a key. I'll have to play with that. That's changed since the last time I used it. It used to be just sort, and then it would sort based upon that single dimension. But it looks like they changed it to handle the multi-dimensions. I'll have to come back to that one. That's changed a lot. Of course, I haven't taught C# for probably 8 to 10 years. But is there any questions on the list box? How that sort works?
I think I understand it.
Okay. Now this should have the same feature. You see there's a sorted flag here. Now list box. See, visible, true or false, that shows it. Tab stop, that's it if you want your tab to go to it for some reason. Sorted, we already talked about. You got your size. Selection mode. You see how you can choose one or multi-simple or multi-extended. This is if you want to choose one item or you'll want to allow them to choose multiple items. None. In theory, then they won't be able to select anything there. Right to left, multi-column. This is, I suppose, if you want to have like a table format, then you can do that. I think that's all the exciting stuff there. I mean, you can do some stuff with colors. This multi-column column, when you set that to true, that would then allow you to maybe have it look like Excel, so you can have more columns. I think combo box. I don't think is anything beyond what I just showed you there. all the packages are running together. It used to be I thought you could click this and put a description down here at the bottom. I must be thinking of a different package. You see drop down style, drop down list, simple. This how do you control it when it drops down? How far does it drop down? Change that to 20. See, I didn't. I think even if I have numbers in there, oops. See how it doesn't drop down very far, and I have to use my arrows here. So you have total control over that. Now, if you're wondering the difference between those, you go into programming. Why this one versus this one? I use list box numbers a lot, or list boxes a lot in this class, mainly because I like to see it on the screen. For somebody who's working in business, they do not want it taking up half their screen, so they like these drop down. So it all depends upon who you're doing this for. Now the assignment for this is I want you to modify this so you can create one similar to this. I want it to add numbers just like you have here. I want it to remove the numbers clear. You do not need the combo box, so you can delete that. And I want you to average the numbers. So after you add them together, you divide by your total count of numbers. Now your average, instead of integers, you have to deal with doubles. So here you just change these to doubles. And then down here, when you're doing the int32.parse, you want to change those to double.parse. What this will ensure, of course, this has to be a double over here. That's why it's giving me an error. What this will ensure is that when you do an average, you come up with decimals, because doubles number with decimals. Questions on that? What I'm looking for? Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording there.